Hello,
Hello.
we're here to talk about your new musical, The
Yeah,
Dolce Vita.
yeah, that's it.
So just tell us a bit about the musical. If you could sum it up in a sentence or two,
Yeah.
how would you advertise it?
Well, it's a family show. I was kind of asked a few years ago to write a musical or see if I could write a musical for the Time Theatre, really.
All
And we've
right.
been discussing this for because I was born in the Northeast. I literally was born a couple of miles away from the theatre. So I remember it as a youngster and all of that. My first escapades in the theatre were. Anyway, so they asked me to do something and they said, could it be a family show and whatever? And I thought, well, I don't know if I'm good at doing family shows because I like to usually have a little bit of swearing and whatever in my work, but never mind. I thought, and I got this idea of there was a club in Newcastle called La Dolce Vita, and I heard about it when I was growing up. I'm not that old, so I don't remember it personally, but I heard about it being like really attractive to superstars used to go there, and ordinary, northern people would turn up on a Friday and they'll be in their best clothes and do a bit of gambling and casino, so they can mix with like the Beatles or the Stones or whoever. So it was kind of a bit of a cool place. So I thought, well, there might be a story in that. So I thought it was a good backdrop. It's kind of like cabaret or something when you've got a great casino and club. So fundamentally, I just came up with this story, which is loosely based on a few things that did happen in the mid 60s, but I've made it my own creation. So I always say it's an almost true story. Uh, but it's full of color. It's full of young kind of people. It's very energetic. I think I've written a good score. It's a good story. It's funny. It's funny. So it's great. So it's very exciting to do this, and it's finally starting to look like we're going somewhere with it. But it's took a few years to get it to this point. So hopefully that answers a little bit of your question.
So you say it's taken a few years to get to this point.
Yeah.
Kind of what's that journey been like? And obviously you're at the workshop point now.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the journey I always say to people when you write musicals, it's not actually for me personally, writing them's not the difficult thing. It's all the economics of trying to put all the pieces in place. And
mm,
obviously, right dab in the middle, we had COVID. So that kind of just knocked 2 years out of the water. But the actual musical itself wasn't that hard to write. I enjoyed writing it. It was great. It was just kind of tying up things with the theatre because they've never done anything like this before. They've never done anything new, and the theatre's like 140, 150 year old or something. It's the second oldest theatre in Newcastle,
mm,
grade one list, gorgeous, gorgeous place. So it was kind of just like steering them in the right direction of how to do a new show because they usually the production company is doing Oliver or Rent or something that's more established. That's kind of an older show. So doing a new show is really exciting, but we're a bit nervous about, is it going to cost like 2 million before we even open the doors or something? And I'm like, no, you can do it actually very cheaply. In fact, it's all about hopefully just a good idea and talent.
so you recently did the workshop. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. Yeah,
At,
we did it on Friday. We just did it. We had a week last week with like kind of local talent, young kids, and also there was some which was really flattering who like things I've done before, and they came up from London and Brighton. So we had a kind of a mixed cast. They weren't just all Northerners, and we tried it out on. They just had a week to rehearse, and it was great. So I went in and saw bits and bobs and kind of, but kept away really. They've got a great team there, great director, great musical director. The arrangements are fantastic. So it was really exciting. But we didn't do the whole show. We just gave like an hour of a little presentation of what it could be. But they did
mm,
move it around the stage and everything, and it was just fantastic on Friday to actually do it on the stage with that
yeah.
incredible auditorium behind us. I thought it really did. I've done a lot of workshops, but I've never done a workshop in such a beautiful on a beautiful stage before. Usually do them in a crappy little back room somewhere, and it's a bit pokey. But this was like it was fantastic. So very exciting.
Obviously, in your previous work, you wrote
Yeah.
From Here to Eternity,
Yes.
which is set in.
Not in Newcastle.
No,
It's set. Not set in the Northeast in 1965. It's set in Pearl Harbor in 1941
yeah,
in
and
Hawaii. They get further apart, really.
yeah, and the musical sound I think really reflects in that
Yeah.
show the 40s setting, and you've got
Yeah.
military sounding things and rock and roll. In what ways does the score of La Dolce Vita reflect
different.
its story?
Well, I kind of always say when I write a score, I kind of want to capture the period and the feel of the essence of the feel of the period, but also have one foot in now. So, you know, people of your age group could come and see it and enjoy it, who love theatre. So they get the best of both. So it has a feeling of the period, but it's not a jukebox show. We don't have any songs from the Rolling Stones or, you know, Helen Shapiro or whoever was around at the time. I'm a stickler for it's a book musical, it's a brand new score, and since we've only kind of worked on piano, the arrangements could go anywhere really. But I was hearing things last week. We had a lovely quartet. Now I wrote it as a quartet, but I just performed it myself. So obviously I didn't have four voices on it. So when we heard it last week, it was really beautiful, and we had duets and. We had a lovely comedy song, and it's a great opening we've got for the show, Swinging at the Dolce Vita. It's just incredibly full of life and colour and excitement, and you get all the sense of all the things that are going on. It's a proper musical, you know. It's kind of a mixture of Guys and Dolls meets Blood Brothers or something, but a lot better, Finley. No, it's I think it's going to be a great big show, you know. It's really exciting because I like to write the big ones, you know, that it's the full company. And so you pay your ticket and you get your popcorn and you go in and you just go, wow, this is proper theatre, you know. So it's going to be great. It's very exciting.
So you say it's exciting and you've got one foot in the door with kind of the new generation of musical theatre. As a composer, what do you see the next generation of musical theatre writing to be like, and what exciting things do you think are on the horizon?
I think what's really exciting is that there's a massive audience for musicals now. When I started out in music, I didn't start out in musicals ever thinking I was going to write them. When I was a kid, younger than you, I kind of just wanted to be in a band. I was a singer, and everybody wanted to be David Bowie. Everybody wanted to be a pop star or new romantic or whatever it might be. And theatre was a bit kind of, that thing that you didn't really go to. Your parents might go to, and they went to see Annie Get Your Gun or something. But the whole generation, the last 10, 12, 13 years or whatever, it's gone really exciting where everything is, young kids just love musicals now. And they want to go and see shows, and they don't have a snobbery towards it. And it's kind of cool as well. And there's some great stuff going on. So I think the future is fantastic for musicals, as long as, I keep saying this, we support new work. We support new voices, and we support new songs and new stories. And we kind of try to get away from this jukebox thing because it's a bit safe. And personally, I find it a bit boring. So I'm more excited about all these kids writing shows, and the immense talent out there in the colleges and schools that are coming through. They're fantastic. I've done a few other workshops at schools and colleges with other shows I've written. And the standard is so high now. It's kind of like you could just whisk them straight onto the West End or Broadway. They are so good. So it's very, very exciting, as long as we don't have too many safe shows in London and Broadway. It's more exciting to hear new songs. And I think your generation, they want to hear new stuff. And that's what was great with the Dolce Vita last week. The kids were going, I'm struggling to find this harmony. I don't know what this is. And the director says, because you've never sang a new song before. You know, I'm kind of giving them something. This is a brand new song. But then when you get them in your head, they can't get them out of their head. And they have this other thing where they call them earworms or whatever, you know, and it's like, that song's in my head all the time. And that's the beauty of new work. So it's very exciting, the future, but as long as we kind of really give young kids lots of new work to do.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You mentioned before about the inspirations of the kind of people who were writing at the time when this was set in the 60s. For this musical, who would you say your inspirations were when writing it, both inside of musical theatre and
it's just I don't think like that. I think story, everything is about a good story. And if once you've got a good story, it kind of takes you in that field, you know, like you're not like literally sitting thinking too much, you immerse yourself in it all. And I've written the book for it as well, so you kind of know the characters. And it is funny, I've written it all in meter. Do you understand? It's kind of like it's not Shakespeare, but it's in rhyme. It's not
Yeah.
rap. It's in ba 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 ba, and it's great because it means that it can be quite emotional in parts and yet funny as well, because you think you know what the line's going to be, and they're good characters. So my inspiration music to do it was very much kind of uh, just the characters. And like I said, is this a good song? And I love
Yeah.
variety of score. You say I'm kind of old-fashioned like that. I like the old scores of the 30s and the 40s, and Irving Berlin's a big hero of mine, and Gershwin, and all these guys. And if you listen to those scores, still, they always had a duet, they'd have a quartet, they'd have a big epic anthem, they'd have the funny little songs and the ballads and the beautiful, and they were the pop songs of the day. So I kind of am more like that. So it's a good rounded score where you've got a lot of songs that are potentially, hopefully, could be hits. You know, though Tim Rice always tells me nobody has hits from musicals anymore. They don't have them on the radio. But I think we could do that. You know, we can get that back again. But I think it's a good score. I hope it's a good score. I mean, the youngsters who performed it last week seemed to be very excited and loved it. So that's all I can go on.
So on this one, having written the music and the lyrics, but previously done work where you only write the music, what freedoms does being able to write both at the same time bring you?
Well, it means that you don't have to have tons of meetings with somebody else. You know, you're kind of like, and also you're kind of thinking, you're not like trying to say, oh, just listen to the music. You're looking at everything at the same time. So you kind of want the book to shine, and you want the words to shine, and you want mainly just want the show to work and entertain people. So you're not having to go through that. The bad side of it is you miss the collaboration. You do miss the kind of going out and having a pint with someone and having a chat with someone, and what about this, what about that, all of that. But they're both interesting. I really enjoyed just doing the music for From You to Turn You. It was great. I love doing that, and it was great work with him. And hopefully, we can do something else together. But I do like doing them on my own because I can get them done quick. I'm very fast, and sometimes when you work with other people, you have to work at their pace. So you might wait a long time for a scene or a lyric or whatever. So they both have their benefits, but it's quite nice working on your own as well. If that makes sense.
So you spoke about the process of writing the book in kind of meter, which sounds like a relatively new thing. What lessons have you learned from writing the Dolce Vita that you hadn't learned from previous musicals?
Good question. It's keeping it family orientated. You know, like there's bits of it where it's a bit, you know, there's some dark little things in it, but I wanted it to be quite family orientated. That doesn't mean it's kind of Mary Poppins or something, but it's still got that essence of everybody could go and see it and have a good laugh and enjoy it, and hopefully come out wanting to go back and see it again, or recommending other people to go see it. So it was a different process, but every musical you write is a different world, and you immerse yourself in that. When I did From Here to Eternity, I got really immersed in like the military and Hawaii and you know that whole period, and you become like not an expert on it, but you're kind of in that world. It's like being a method actor, where you're walking around like Daniel Day-Lewis with the gun in Last of the Mohicans or something when you go to bed, and you're all a bit like that. You're a bit eccentric with the whole thing, but it's such a great period, the Dolce Vita set. 1965, it was all kind of swinging England, really. It's not just set about the Northeast, it's really about Britain in that period where we kind of were running the world in rock music, fashion, Mary Quant. You had all of these things going on at the time. James Bond was coming through. I mean, England was Britain was the cool place. So it's fantastic to be able to kind of step back into that and also show that to a younger generation, show this generation what it would have been like to be 21, 22 in 1965. You know, Bob Dylan was just happening. I mean, it was an amazing period. And this club, it's just up a little side road in Newcastle. It's not far from the Time Theatre, in fact, where we did the workshop. And it's not there anymore, but the street obviously is. And you just get a sense of, they must have been like the Beatles were doing a show in town, And then it's like, where can we get a drink at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock? Because the bars weren't open. There wasn't the clubs like we got now that stay open late. So they went to the Dolce Vita. They go in there and they get the whiskey and Coke, you know, and they could have a cigarette in those days and watch a great piece of entertainment and do a bit of gambling. And, you know, it was cool. So it's such a wonderful period. And it's fascinating. But I've brought all these characters, and plus we had the gangland people coming up from London that were a bit dodgy, and they came to try and take over the club, thinking, oh, they're Geordies. We're from London. We are running the show. We're going to come here and just take it over. And there's this north-south thing going on. So I'm not giving away what happens, but it's bringing all of these elements into it. And then there's two lovely love stories with the two young lads who run the club. Like, one's a cool guy and the other one's a bit gormless. They're both brothers, and they both got these girls who are kind of like completely different. One's very posh, and the other girls are complete, you know, quite working class. And it's a lovely foursome. So it's really, I think it's going to be a good night out. But we just got to see. But it's exciting, as you can see. I'm very excited by it all.
It sounds like a show that really nicely balances kind of a bit of a political commentary,
yeah,
as well as, you know, action and excitement and things like that. What would the takeaway be?
Under the surface, you see, the thing is to don't preach, but they're under the surface there, and that's the great thing. And this writing in meter is a great way to be able to get away with stuff.
Yeah,
because it's a good way. I mean, to get away. I tried it a few years ago. I did a show in the Isle of Man called Jimmy Mack at this beautiful theatre at the Gaiety Theatre, and I've tried this concept which was in meter, and I didn't plan to do it, and when it worked, and it was really funny on it, I went, oh, and I wasn't planning to do it on the Dolce Vita, but it just kind of worked.
Yeah,
but this is more character led. It's hard to explain, but I think everybody will get it when they come along.
Yeah.
You've got to go into that world.
Yeah.
So it's fantasy, because theatre, musicals, they're fantasy. You know, they're not reality. We don't suddenly break into song on the tube. Well, some people do, but you know what I mean. If you did,
Yeah.
you get arrested. So musicals are totally fantasy anyway. But once people step into that world, then it's fun. It's fun. I'm getting a lot of people at the minute asking me, because we've recorded the album From Here to Eternity. So a lot of people who might watch this will probably just want me to talk about From Here to Eternity, because there's a lot of fans out there really obsessed with the show. And that's lovely. And I thank them immensely for that. Now, we've recorded the album. This is exclusive. It is recorded. It's mixed. I've had it I've been listening to it since February or something. So it's all there. It is done. It's fantastic. It's the first studio record we've had From Here to Eternity, because the last album was done from the live show, from the mixing desk, and we edited and all that. But it was live. This is done in a recording studio, so they can sing and we can hear the band, all the instruments, new arrangements. It's very kind of radio friendly, I think. And it's we got a great arranger on it. Nick Barstow's done a fantastic job. The arrangements are lovely. The singing's lovely, as we know, because it's from the cast that did it last year at the Charing Cross. So it's all ready to go, but I don't have a date when it's going to be released. So you'll have to have an interview with Tim Rice, because he will probably be able to tell you when it's coming out. I can't, because people write me all the time and they think that I know all the answers. I don't. But it is coming out, and there's a new production of the show coming up, but I don't have any dates and stuff like that. In the interim, I'm trying to get my other work off the ground. So back to the Dolce Vita.
That sounds extremely exciting.
Yeah.
So to segue back to the Dolce Vita, for people who love From Here to Eternity, what can they expect in the Dolce Vita that will be kind of familiar, and what's going to be different about it?
Well, melody, hopefully. I think if people like my stuff, I think it's very melodic. I love a good melody, and I'm old school like that. So it's very tuneful. There's a lot of variety in it. And there's also, people know that I like to write about outsiders and kind of cool characters. So the main guy in it is kind of cool. So you've got all that element. So if you like Eternity, those elements are not dissimilar, and hopefully it's a good story. But where it's different is, like I said, it's more of a family type thing. and nobody gets shot and killed. And in the second half, Pearl Harbor doesn't happen, you know. So it's kind of more of a, like I said, a family type show that you can go along and it's just a good night out. So you will enjoy it. If you like eternity, you hopefully like my kind of music, which is melodic. There's the big songs where I can bring everybody together, and I'm quite good at, I think, doing that, and I love to see that. And the backdrop's super important. In eternity, the backdrop obviously was Schofield Barracks, was the platoon. The platoon, I always said, are a character on that, you know, just they're one character, even though there's like 15 soldiers. And it's very similar with the Dolce Vita, that the club, all the casino, all the things that are going on are one character. So they're all making a judgment of what's going on. And then you got your individuals in front. So that's kind of how I write a show. They take it down to really intimacy and then spectacle. So it's a proper old, you know, it's a proper West End show, but we're going to do it hopefully in Newcastle first, and then. But I could see it. My dream for the Dolce Vita is to tour it, because I do think it'll do well. Even if you don't have to be a Geordie or from Newcastle to get the humour and the fun and all of that.
Yeah.
And with it in meter, it actually helps you understand what they're saying if you get confused, which I don't think you will. So I don't know, but it's a good show. So I think if you like things I've done before, you're not going to be disappointed with this one, I hope.
It sounds in many ways like what Standing at the Sky's Edge did for Sheffield.
Yeah.
This kind of be for Newcastle.
Well, hopefully, I think it's great they're doing that in Sheffield and getting it into London. I mean, that's very exciting for musicals and for musical fans, because it's a new piece of work, and it's also about the provinces, which is important because it does get a bit centralised in the West End, and it's the same on Broadway. You know, it's the same where everybody thinks it's just Broadway, and it's this huge, you know, continent of other places going on, and it's the same in this country. There's some fantastic theatre going on throughout the country. So Newcastle, unfortunately, has never, in my experience or my life, has had an area or of voices telling musical stories. We've not had that, so hopefully I can provide that. So we can be like Liverpool had Willie Russell and Alan Bleasdale. Now Sheffield's got, you know, this great new show. They're doing things in Leicester. They're doing, you know, around the camp in Manchester and all of that. Manchester's always had a good musical kind of scene going on, but Newcastle hasn't. And yet we've got these fantastic theatres and also a great audience up there. They're very bright. They know their stuff. They know their theatre. They love their theatre. So it's nice to be able to. My dream is to have the world premiere there, so people come to us. You know, people go to Newcastle and make that like, wow, it's fantastic. It's as good as the West End, or as good as Broadway, or whatever. Which
so hopefully this is the show that puts Newcastle on the map as a place for theatre.
I hope so. My dream was, when I had meetings with the board of the theatre, when I was a kid in Newcastle, and I did study theatre, but I always knew I'm not going to be able to be successful here. I've got to go to London. And when you're a young kid, it's very daunting, the idea of leaving your home and your family and your friends and then setting up in a strange town and all of that. So I feel for the talented kids in Newcastle who have to do that. So my dream was to say, can we do something here so they don't have to flee the nest too early? They will at some point, but they don't have to straight away, and they can enjoy something like being in a West End type show and then still go home at night and have their tea. You know, it's a basic thing, but I know what it's like, because I had to leave my mom. I was very close to her, and I was living in London, and we didn't have mobile phones then. That's how long ago it was. So I couldn't speak to her. I didn't have any money and all of that, but I was driven to pursue a career. So I want to give the northern kids that opportunity to pursue their dreams, but not have to leave home too quickly. And all the mothers will be really on my side, because they don't want to see their kids go, because then they start to feel old. Yeah.
Okay, so to finish, if you want to give a lasting impression of what people can expect, what people can look forward to with the Dolce Vita, what do you want to share with people?
I think a good, modern, old-fashioned show. if that makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
they has the rudiments of what we all love about musicals. You know, when we get these revivals and we're all raving about Guys and Dolls, or we're all raving about this show or that show that's coming back, and go, fantastic, fantastic. And you go, yes, but it is of a period. They were written in the 50s, they were written in the 40s, and they summed up that period. The Dolce Vita, even though I've said it in 1965, it sums up now. You know, I'm writing it now. So it's that kind of world. You're getting the old-fashioned big spectacle Oklahoma type show, but it's new, and you're going to see new stars. You're going to meet new talent who are going to bring new songs to life, and we're going to remember those songs and those talent. Hopefully, if we have a hit, for generations to come. So in 30 years' time, they'll be doing revivals of this, like they're doing revivals of those shows. So, you know, I said this at the workshop the other day. New is not a dirty word. New is exciting. New is exciting. I create every day. I do something every day, and I've done that since I was a teenager. And it's a fantastic way to live your life. Something exists at the end of the day that didn't exist in the morning. It's what we're here for. Okay.
Absolutely. So fingers crossed that
fingers crossed, Ben.
has all the success.
I'd love you to see it and your thoughts. We'll have another chat at another time. But thank you so much for talking to me, because I really do appreciate it. And it's nice to be able to reach out and talk to a few people about my new show.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure getting to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much, sir. And you take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye.